Great pleasure for me to continue Princeton's long-standing tradition of letting the president have the first word at opening exercises and the last word at commencement. Earlier this year, I had reason to believe that this class was especially interested in what I had to say, as we received an unusually high volume of calls into my office inquiring about the availability of extra commencement tickets. Now, we didn't know whether to be gratified or puzzled until we realized that there was a rumor going around that First Lady Michelle Obama of the class of 1985 would be delivering the address to mark the 25th anniversary of her graduation from Princeton. So I guess I need to begin by apologizing to all of those disappointed folks for the obvious fact that I am not Michelle Obama. I understand that those extra tickets were being sold this morning on eBay for the price of postage. What I can bring to my remarks this morning that she could not is the great experience of having had a front row seat to your journeys through Princeton. I marveled at your commitment to community service, including your fall break trip to serve hot breakfast to famished Harvard students who were suffering under President Faust's cost-cutting measures. As a Canadian, I was impressed by your construction of affordable housing during the big snowstorm. And like you, I was taken aback when the housing office said that setting up residents in igloos was forbidden. They obviously did not grow up in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I have also attended thrilling athletic events, like the bonfire that celebrated the football team's Ivy League championship in your freshman year, and the amazing run of the women's basketball team to their first outright Ivy championship this spring. I watched Eliza Doolittle come to life on the stage this fall, and Mahler's immensely difficult Sixth Symphony raise high the roof at Richardson Auditorium a month ago. And I've watched with pride as you responded to natural disasters of epic proportions, from the streets of Port-au-Prince to the mountains of Sichuan, China. I've witnessed the electricity that is generated when PhD students gather to share their work with one another. And I've seen how master's students at the Woodrow Wilson School have tackled some of the most challenging issues facing our world today through their graduate policy workshops. In countless office hours, lunches, and dinners, you challenged me to think anew about everything from climate change to workers' rights, from gay marriage to the role of women leaders on campus, and yes, that perennial favorite, our grading policy. For me, it has been an exhilarating time, the best possible way to live one's life, being continuously stimulated and impressed by young men and women who are preparing through education to imagine how they will create a more perfect union for this country and the world. As anyone who has tried to change the world eventually learns, though, imagining is easy, doing is hard. I learned that lesson early in my career from a pathology professor who had a sign on his desk that said, "Ideas are a dime a dozen, it's experiments that count." As I think about the world you are about to enter, it seems to me that affecting change has never been harder. We are living in an increasingly polarized world in which discussion and debate, those critical ingredients for creating fertile ground for change, have become sharper and far more likely to result in impasse than in consensus. The national spectacle we have just endured during the consideration of health care reform was not an edifying one, and it did not speak well for our body politic, no matter where one stands on the political spectrum. Both sides engaged in varying degrees of exaggeration and misrepresentation, committing both errors of omission and commission. And far too few politicians, media commentators, and engaged citizens took the long view that reform of some kind is necessary if health care is not to bankrupt the country, or asked how a society as privileged as ours could allow children to go without medical care. A call for civil discourse has become the anthem of Jim Leach, class of 1964, former university trustee and this year's Woodrow Wilson Award winner. A former Republican congressman from Iowa, who now chairs the National Endowment of the Humanities. He has been on a nationwide tour exhorting audiences to consider the dangers of polarization in our political sphere. In a recent speech at Miami-Dade Community College, he observed, "We see this polarization in the public square where history-blind words like fascist and communist are being applied to individuals in high office as if these individuals should be considered mortal enemies rather than political rivals, and where concepts like secession and nullification are being considered as if the Civil War didn't resolve issues of the human soul and the primacy of the Union." Now, politics has always been considered a blood sport. Although it may have reached its nadir during the famous duel in 1804 between Aaron Burr, Princeton class of 1772, and Alexander Hamilton, politics has never been for the faint of heart, and never more so than today. Everyone has taken sides, retreated to his or her respective corner, and tuned into the cable networks where they will have their opinions confirmed, or logged into the internet bloggers who reinforce rather than challenge those opinions. Marcus Pryor, a faculty member in the Department of Politics, has written a fascinating account of polarization in his 2007 Cambridge University Press book called Post-Broadcast Democracy: How Media Choice Increases Inequality in Political Involvement and Polarizes Elections. His thesis is that the proliferation of media, both cable TV and the internet, which one would think would provide richer opportunities for dialogue in a democracy, has instead contributed significantly to the polarization we see today. For most of the second half of the 20th century, viewers had only 3 networks to choose among to learn the news. Those networks were relatively nonpartisan in their views, and Americans participated collectively in a nightly ritual of learning the events of the day by watching the 6 o'clock news. Today, as our university orator and class day speaker will surely attest, those viewers have before them an almost impossible range of choices and can exercise that choice 24 hours a day. And too often, viewers gravitate to the news source that reinforces their own views. Whether you tune into Rachel Maddow and Keith Olbermann on the left, or Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh on the right, or look to Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert to simply laugh at it all, there is little doubt that the trend of framing national issues in the language of black and white, either or, good or bad, has created a downward spiral in the tone of our political discourse. Now, what